got your Christmas gift for you.
50 Shades of Grey. Meanwhile, Fox News alert, there are new developments as the White House officials behind the Obamacare website debacle are grilled on Capitol Hill. So here is what has happened so far.
I believe that as public servants, we have a shared goal to deliver to Americans the service they deserve and expect.
And since on day one, only 6 people got to the end, I think that for the American people, understanding that whatever the capacity is today, the capacity was insufficient on day one. Isn't that correct?
So, sir, just in the interest of providing the most accurate testimony I can.
Now, I only want to know, on day one, was the capacity sufficient?
So it's fully tested as the other IT projects you've overseen into that same standard?
I'm trying to understand what you mean by fully tested. It was tested in accordance.
Fully tested? Holy cow, this is like a new low.
4 minutes.
You know,
look, so I'm only asking is, of course, whether or not be slammed.
Gentleman's time. That gentleman's recognized.
So you're not going to run a fair hearing. You're just going to go out and do this all the way.
How many cyber attacks have there been on the healthcare.gov system?
We are aware of one open source action attempting to perpetrate a denial of service attack against the healthcare.gov site that has been unsuccessful.
As was stated by the Secretary herself, it is possible that a felon may be a navigator.
Okay, there's a lot to dive into there. Welcome to HQ. I'm Allison Camerata.
I'm Bill Hemmer. Those are 2 heated hearings on the Hill today. You saw part of both there on why the Obamacare website was not and is not ready for prime time, frankly. The other on the security risk for Americans putting their vital information online, and Mike Emanuel leads our coverage. He's live on the Hill for what's happened so far. Mike, good afternoon.
Well, Bill, good afternoon. Administration officials are telling lawmakers today that there is progress being made on healthcare.gov. For example, 2 weeks ago, they say it took 8 seconds to load a page, and now they say it is less than a second. Here's more on efforts to fix the website.
I can say now that in addition to volume, there are other key issues that have to be addressed with the site in terms of its performance, in terms of its stability, in terms of its functionality, and there are aggressive efforts happening to do that, which are making great progress. The site's getting better and better each week.
Let's take a live look at the House Oversight Committee hearing still going after 3.5 hours. There was some drama coming in with Chairman Darrell Issa subpoenaing that White House official Todd Park to testify. He showed up and is answering questions, but forcing him to appear irritated White House officials and some Democrats on that committee. There was an exchange earlier about why, when this website clearly was not ready for prime time, why they insisted on moving forward with launch October 1st.
Why? If you got all these problems, why not wait?
I didn't ask why. I said that was my margin.
And what I'm suggesting is the folks at the White House knew this thing had problems, evidenced by the testing that wasn't done end to end. They, for political reasons, had picked this date, and so for political reasons, they had to adhere to this date. And the end result is Americans' personal information is put at risk.
There have been multiple questions to those administration officials about whether this website will be fully functional November 30th, which, of course, was the goal that the administration set. They say they are working hard at that goal and striving to achieve it. Bill?
All right, Mike, thanks. Mike Emanuel leading our coverage there on the Hill. Allison with more on this.
That really is the burning question. So did the administration's top technology guys convince lawmakers that they will have the website fixed in the next 2 weeks, or did they not? Florida Republican John Mica serves on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. He was at today's hearing. Congressman Mica, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
What did you learn today?
Well, first of all, we learned that this implosion of Obamacare we see was actually predictable, that in fact the people at CMS and also the White House knew there were flaws in the system. In fact, they caused a delay in issuing regulations before the election because they didn't want the American public and others to know how bad the requirements were going to be. So that delayed the implementation. Then we found out they went forward even without completing a full security test of the system. So even today, they could not answer whether your personal information, your medical, your identification, identification information can be at risk, and we don't know that.
And were you surprised, Congressman, that they admitted that they did not do any pre-launch testing in terms of the amount of volume that was predicted?
Well, again, this was riddled with errors. From an operational standpoint, they also put in charge CMS, which is in charge of Medicare and Medicaid. They can't even get that right. They were supposed to be the systems integrator, and they couldn't get anything to work. They were delayed by the White House in actually setting up the requirements they had to comply with. And then the White House and others ignored information that they knew that Obamacare was not ready on October 1st for prime time.
Okay, but they say they are working on it. They say they have made progress. They say that they are now able to process nearly 17,000 registrants per hour. That's 5 per second, they say. Does it mollify you that they seem to be getting some of this under control?
Well, that's one of the problems. We now also I'm deluged with thousands of constituents who have lost their insurance, they were told they could keep their insurance. The technical problems are one thing, but my goodness, people that by the millions now who are getting these notifications, they can't keep the insurance they were promised they could keep. So, the technical is a minor problem compared to the disruption in people's life and health care.
Absolutely. So, Congressman, last, are you confident today that the Obamacare website will be up and fully functional at the end of this month?
No, and I'm even more concerned that people's personal information, their identity, medical information may be at risk because the system is not secure.
Congressman John Michael, we will be talking more about the security of the system as well in the rest of the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
As we mentioned, the Washington Post today was reporting the website will not be fixed by the end of the month, which would break a promise by the administration. And one of the big enrollment alternatives the administration is pushing has problems, too. According to the paper, the 17 federally sponsored call centers face serious problems, including a lack of authority to correct the errors in online applications if you have an issue or a question on the phone.
Okay, speaking of Obamacare, it's a rare day when Dick Cheney agrees with Bill Clinton, but both men think that President Obama needs to keep his promise and let Americans keep their health plans if they like them. The former vice president on the record with Greta.
I'm inclined to agree with Bill Clinton that's something that ought to be attempted, but given the complexity of the system, and you've already got people now who've lost their policies, who can't get new ones. These policies have been declared by law to be inadequate because of the standards that are written into the federal regulations. I'm not quite sure how now you go peel back that onion. I mean, you've got a situation here where do you go back out to the people whose policies have been canceled and give them a new policy and just repeal Obamacare? I don't know, maybe, but it's hard to think of how you would actually implement that. I think exactly what needs to be done is to repeal Obamacare. I think it's a serious foul-up, major problem in terms of the government trying to do more than it's capable of doing.
Also, the former vice president brings up the heart of the issue when it comes to fixing Obamacare. How do you bring back canceled insurance policies if they violate the health care law the way it is written now? A daunting task. Jerry Willis, Fox Business Network, has more on this. Now, there's a push on behalf of mostly House Republicans to do what, Jerry?
Well, here's what Fred Upton says. He says that you should be able to keep your plan. That's what his legislation he's proposing says. Keep the plans that were offered that were canceled because of the Obamacare requirements. And we know Mary Landrieu in the Senate is offering similar legislation, except she ups the ante. She wants those insurance policies to be offered indefinitely. Here's what we know. Almost 5 million people have lost their policies already, right? And how you flip the switch on that and turn back the tide and say, hey, that policy you had that's now dead can come back to life. Frankly, Bill, I have no idea. But keep in mind, there is another 93 million people who could lose coverage, who have employer-sponsored coverage, who in the coming weeks, months, next fall, could get similar notices. These people could be helped.
Well, I mean, based on the way the law's set up, in a year, there will be tens of millions of people that will be reporting on. Okay, this is what we found earlier today. In order to get a change like this, the president would have to sign legislation that changes the health care law. that means it would have to go through Congress, right? So if the House idea doesn't go anywhere, they're going to do what Valerie Jarrett said last night. They're going to grind it out through this, are they not?
Well, one would think, but I have to tell you, it's not just Congress that has to act, it's the insurance companies too. Once you cancel a valid contract, resurrecting it may not be the easiest thing as a practical matter, Bill. I mean, that's an issue that needs to be, because once you're done with business, it's over.
I gotcha. Okay. So
and I think it's going to be an issue. The insurers are going to fight this tooth and nail, would be my guess.
You just mentioned 5 million plus across the country. I mean, California has 1 million plus already, right?
And the total number, Bill, that we are looking at today, 93 million Americans could see their health care canceled.
All right. We'll see where this House bill goes and what comes of it. Jerry, you raise a good point there, too, though. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff, frankly, that we don't know. You know, we don't know where it leads.
Not yet.
I mean, Steve Hayes was on with us earlier today. He said it's like playing a game of Jenga. You know, you're not sure what's going to happen if you punch the block out. But Jerry Willis, check her out at 6 o'clock on FBN. And what do you think? We want to know, will the canceled plans come back?
You can send us a tweet to Bill at Bill Hemmer or to me at Allison Camerata. We'd love to hear from you.
And we're going to try and, you know, we'll work our way through this. But, I mean, we're with you on as we go hour by hour sometimes. You know, like these hearings reveal some of the stories that we pick up in the morning every day.
Right, particularly today, because they're ending or they've just ended, so we have a lot of new information for you.
In the meantime, the White House hoping for a do-over with more than 250,000 Americans who have nowhere, who get nowhere, trying to sign up for the federal insurance on the website. Inviting them now to come back. Would they?
Plus, more fireworks from back-to-back hearings on the botched rollout, including one lawmaker trying to figure out who knew what, when they knew it about the website not being ready for prime time.
Well, you got the fancy title. You're the Chief Information Officer of the United States of America. That's a pretty big title, and you didn't know about this before the biggest domestic policy program website in the history of this country ever is launched, and you didn't know about this?